I put together a 3-lesson series here on open voicings to show you how they work and how you can incorporate them into your own playing. The open voicings give us a pleasant and slightly jazzy way to make our chords that we can play our standards with. Now you want to know how to make your 5 basic jazz chord types in order to get into this lesson. Now if you don't know how to make those, take a look at a lesson I have on the website called the 5 jazz chord types. Those chord types are major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and diminished 7. These are 4-note 7th chords that we could make with one hand, and we divide them into 2 hands. We've got 2 notes in the left and 2 notes in the right. Then we add a melody note in the right hand sometimes. And this gives us pleasant sounding and slightly jazzy chords to play our standards with. So you want to make sure you know how to play those chords and take a look at that lesson before you work with this one if you don't know how to do it. Now I'll start out here in lesson 1 by showing you how to take our 5 basic jazz chord types and divide them into our 2 hands so we can apply them to songs. And we'll be looking at various situations that come up that you'll have questions about how you can harmonize things correctly with the open voicings. Now in each of our lessons we'll be working with at least one complete standard, and so we can kind of build arrangements with the open voicings. And I'll be showing you some left hand techniques and also some basic rhythm techniques, so you kind of get a simple arrangement to walk away with while you're working with the open voicings. The lessons get kind of progressive. As I say, we're going to start here by just explaining the process. In lesson 2, we'll work on a whole song, It Had to Be You, and look at some various things in it, and we'll show you how to make some fills in there with some basic rhythm technique. In lesson 3, then I start showing you how to put extended jazz tones into the chords and some alterations, so things get progressively a little more sophisticated as we go along. And the example song there is The Man I Love, which is a terrific example song and has a lot of these altered tones in it that are really neat to work with. So you get the idea, and you'll be able to hopefully incorporate them into any songs that you like to work with. We're going to take the 5 jazz chord types that we work with in the 5 jazz chord types lesson and open those chords up here and see how we make our open chord voicings and how we harmonize our melodies with them. So let's start by taking our 5 basic jazz chord types, our 5 qualities. The 5 qualities are major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and diminished. So they look like this using C as example. C major 7, lower the 7, C dominant 7, lower the 3 to make C minor 7, lower the 5 to make C minor 7 flat 5, lower the 7 again to make C diminished 7. Now if any of this looks like something you don't understand, or I'm going too fast through the 5 chord types, please go back and have a look at the 5 jazz chord types video lesson, because it will explain everything I'm doing here in great depth and going very slowly through all the keys. That lesson is where this series begins, so you want to be familiar with how to make these chord types before we go on. Okay, let's continue. So what we're going to do is, the first move for open voicings is take the 3 and the 7 out of every chord and move it up in your right hand. So we're going to take this 3 and 7, move it up here. So there's our C major 7 spread out with 1 5 in the left hand and 3 7 in the right. Now we need to then make the dominant 7. We're going to lower the 7 to dominant 7 position. We still have 1 5, 3 7, but this time it's a dominant chord. Now we're going to lower the 3 to make a minor 7. Still 1 5, 3 7, but now it's a minor chord quality. Let's lower the 5 on the left hand to make C minor 7 flat 5. Still have 3 7 in the right hand. Let's lower the right hand 7 one more time to make C diminished 7. So this is a double flatted 7. It doesn't matter that how you call it. It's just a C diminished 7 chord. So that's our starting point, 1 5, 3 7 in the right hand. Let's go back to our major 7 chord. Major 7, let's pull the 3 and 5 out up here. Now we have to be able to invert the right hand so that it goes 7-3 instead of 3-7. So that means we just flip these two notes around, and we can do that in two different ways. We can put this B on the bottom, and now we have 7-3. And the reason for this is we have to support our melodies with either 7-3 or 3-7, depending on where the melody notes are above either one of these places. So we're constantly going 7-3 or 3-7 as we go through our songs, looking to support them with the open voicings. So let's do it again. We've got C major 7. Let's go 3-7 up here. And we can also take this note and double it up here, so we can see both the 3-7 and the 7-3. Or we could double it this way, down here, hold on to all three notes, we say C 3-7 and 7-3. The ability to make your chords with this 3-7 or 7-3 in the right hand is a great evolutionary step in your understanding of how to play chords on the piano, because we need to open them. We need to understand this concept of spreading the chords in two hands. And there's more than one way to do it. I'm being rather strict in this approach here of 1-5 in the left hand and 3-7 or 7-3 in the right. That's how I teach the entire lesson. But this isn't really ideal voicing because we're going parallel movement all the time. The left hand's always going 1-5, 1-5, and that's how we start. But then we'll find out that we can do different things with the left hand. We're not always playing 1 and 5, so we don't always have this parallel motion going on. And we'll talk about that later. But this is where we start. Just 1-5, 3-7, 1-5, 7-3, one or the other. Okay, so let's take our chords like that and walk through them and find out where the 7-3 is every time. So we did our major 7. Let's do it again. Major 7, take the 3 and 7 out, put it up here. And let's just double the top note. So now we can see 3-7, 7-3. And let's do the same thing on the dominant 7. We're going to lower the 7 here. 3-7, I'm going to double that top note to 7-3. So here I can see my 3-7 or my 7-3. I'm going to lower the third this time. Here's my 3-7, or double this one. I see 7-3 here, 3-7 here. Now I'll lower the 5 in my left hand. The right hand playing 3 and 7. Double that top note down here. Now I've got 7-3 or 3-7. Let's lower the 7 up here one more time. So I've got my 3 and 7, or I'll double this note down here. And I've got 7-3 this time. So this is the process. This is how it works. We open the chords up. And we're always looking to accommodate that melody note, so we have to be able to do it both ways. Let's take F, starting on an F note, and make a major 7 chord here. Now this time I've got it in my right hand, and I'm going to take the 1 and 5 out and locate them down here. So I've got 1, 5, 3, 7. Now if I want the dominant 7, I lower the 7. And if I want to find the 7-3, I'm going to double this top note and see down here 7-3 or 3-7. Now it starts to get a little bit low down here, so I'd be better off to have it up here. So it's in this vantage point here, then I've got 1, 5, 3, 7. I'll double my thumb up here in order to find the 7 and 3 above the 3-7, or hold all 3 down, and you can see them both from this position. Okay, let's make a minor 7. I'm going to lower the 3. F minor 7, 1, 5, 3, 7. I'm going to double the 3 up here, so now I can see 7-3, or hold all 3 down. 3-7, 7-3. I'm going to lower the 5 in my left hand. F minor 7, flat 5, and the right hand still holding 3 and 7 or 7 and 3. I'll lower the 7 this time to make a full diminished 7 chord. 1, 5, 3, 7, or I'll double the 3 and have it up here, 7, 3. So that's the process, and we go about it slowly. We don't have to be in a hurry. As we're learning the songs and going through them, we just take our time and see which position fits the melody. Let's harmonize a major scale with our open voicings. Now in closed voicings, let's start in F and harmonize the 7 notes of a major scale. On the root note, we've got our major 7. On the second scale tone, we have the minor 7. We call this the 2 chord, G minor 7. The 3 chord is a minor 7. The 4 chord is a major 7. The 5 chord, a dominant 7. 6 chord, we're back to minor 7. And the 7 chord, a minor 7 flat 5. So let's see how we can open those voices up and walk through a major scale. Starting with the F major 7 here, let's take the 1 and the 5 down here. And now we're going to walk up the scale. There's our minor 7. 1, 5, 3, 7. And let's go up to the third scale step, minor 7. So we've got 1, 5, 3, 7. Now to the fourth scale tone, B flat major 7. 1, 5, 3, 7. The fifth tone of the scale is always the dominant chord. 1, 5, 3, 7. To the sixth tone, 1, 5, 3, 7. That's a minor 7. And 7 is the minor 7 flat 5. 1, 5, 3, 7. And let's go back to major 7. So this is a beautiful sound as you go up a major scale like that. Quite nice. So you want to be able to do this in all scales or a number of scales. You might try it in some different scales to see how you can do it. Let's do that again, and this time I'm going to double the top and bottom notes in the right hand. So here's our 1, 5, 3, 7. I'm going to double the top note down here. So now I'm holding 7, 3, 7. So I can see both the 7, 3 position and the 3, 7 position. I'm going to walk up the scale. 1 chord, major 7. 2 chord, minor 7. 3 chord, minor 7, 4 chord, major 7, 5 chord, dominant 7, 6 chord, minor 7, 7 chord, minor 7, flat 5, and then back to our 1 chord, major 7. You can try something else here just to enjoy the beauty of the open chords. Let's take our F major 7 again, 1, 5, 3, 7. Double the top note and roll them as you go up. And you might want to use the pedal with this. It'll sort of spread the voicings out and make them sound more smooth. So I'm just going up and down in my right hand and playing the notes one at a time. I'll go to the 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 6, 7, back to 1. It's just a way to appreciate that expansive sound of the open voicings. Major jazz chords can be made in 2 ways, as major 7s or major 6. So what that means is we just bring the 7 down one whole step. It looks like this. Here's our major 7. We bring that top 7 down to a 6 right here. So whenever you see a major jazz chord on a chart, you can play either major 7 or major 6. So this goes for any chord. Let's go down to F. There's major 7. If you see major 7 on the chart, you actually can try major 6 and see if you prefer the sound of it. There's some places where it naturally must be a 6 chord. Like if your melody lands on this note and you're playing an F major jazz chord, well, that's the 6th of the F. So we split this up in open voicings. Let's look at it like this. Here's our major 6 in F. We take the 1 and 5 down here, and there's our F major 6 in open voicings. If it was 7, we would bring this back up, back down to the 6. Okay, same thing on C. Let's go there. There's our major 7. Let's bring the 1 and 5 down here. If we want to make it 6, major 6, we just bring it down here. Okay, I just want to make a little side note here. So far I've been marking the flatted tones for the chord types, like you see the arrows pointing to here. I've been doing this just to make everything extra clear while reviewing the 5 jazz chord types. As I proceed with the lesson, though, I won't be doing this. I will just write 1, 3, 5, 7 on screen to represent all of the tones in the chords, no flats. By now you should already know how the individual chords are made. Like a dominant chord will have a flatted 7, and minor chords will have both a flat 3 and a flat 7, and so forth. The one exception will be when I'm describing the minor 7 flat 5 or the diminished chord. There I will sometimes mark a flat 5 on the left hand. This will remind you not to play the natural 5 when you play those 2 chord types. Okay, just so you know. Now let's get back to the lesson. Now, as I've said, when you see a major jazz chord, you can play a major 7 or a major 6. So by major jazz chord, I mean that, major 7, major 6. As you advance with your chords, you see you can put a 9 on both of those chords too, but we don't do that. Right now we're just going to say major 7 or major 6. And when we end songs, the rule of thumb is we end with the major 6. We could end with a triad, but major 6 keeps it in our jazz voicings here for our standards. If you ended with a major 7, it can be problematic, and here's why. Let's say our song is in the key of C, and we come to the last note in the song. Now what happens on almost every song, the last note of the song is the root note of the key the song is in. So what that means, if we're playing a song in C, the final note of the song is going to be a C. It's almost always like this. So what happens here is you don't want to play a major 7, because if you do, let's voice it out. Open voicing, 1, 5, 3, 7. If you end on this note, that's the root note, you get this sound. Now it's okay, it's not incorrect, it's not bad, but you've got this thing here with this dissonance. If you play it by itself, it sounds terrible. When you add the chords to it, it sounds good. Up an octave, it's not bad. It's a jazz dissonance that actually sounds nice. But what we generally do is not play major 7. We bring the 7 down to 6. Then we don't have to worry about that. It's especially vulnerable when a singer's singing, or if you're singing, or you've got a horn player and they hit that last note, they're sustaining it, and if you're playing the major 7, it can clash. And if you hold on to it especially, it's like, ooh, it sounds a little funny. So your ear kind of straightens you out, and you can just quickly go to 6. If you were on 7, you just, major 7, you roll down to 6 like that. So that's something to remember about the final chord you would use on any song. Or if you're going to play the major 7, you play it after you play the 6. So you can play the final chord as a 6, then the song's ending, go to a major 7, something like that. Just a little professional trick. Roll into the major 7 after you've hit the 6. And something else to tell you too, just for your information. If you want to know what key a song is in, you're not sure, look for the last melody note in the song, because as mentioned, it is the root note of the key you're in. So some people make the mistake when they're starting out of thinking, well, the first note of the song is the key, or the first chord of the song is going to tell us the key the song's in. Not true. It's the final note of the song that will tell you. So if you end up on an A as the last note of the song, you're going to be in the key of A. Generally speaking, there are some rare exceptions, but just look for that final note and you're going to find the key. So it's just for your general information and in case you're wondering how you can tell what key a song is in. Let's take a look at the first 4 bars of Danny Boy and see how we're going to apply our open voicings. These first 4 bars of Danny Boy in our example use the 3 chord types that we use most often whenever we play standards. I would say 85% of the time, every chord we see in standards is going to be made with these 3 chord types: major 7, dominant 7, minor 7. So we're going to get real familiar with those chords, and Danny Boy is a good example. We'll be able to use them in this short example here. In these first 4 bars, I wrote down all the chords that we use, and I think it's a good idea to do this and just make sure you can play those chords in closed position and open position before you start to harmonize the melody. Whenever you work on a new song, do that. And that way you're sure what you're doing with the chords before you get to them in that spot in the song. And if you find yourself trying to learn the chord and the melody at the same time, it makes your work a lot harder. And this way also you can kind of maybe start a collection of chords that you're learning and working on. So here's what I mean. Take these 6 chords and first play them in closed position and walk through all of them. C major 7, C dominant 7, F6, A minor 7, D7, G7. Play them in any range, just make sure that you can play them, and then open them up. So we have our C major 7, just make sure you can open it up, 3-7, 1-5 on the left, 3-7 in the right. Then make sure you can also play it as a 7-3. Not just 3-7, but 7-3, because we don't know which position our right hand will be in to support our melody, so we want to make it in both positions. Same thing with C7. So we've got our 1-5 down here, lift the 3-7 up, and make sure you can play it as a 7-3 also. F6. Let's put our 1-5 down low and hold on to our 3-6. And you may have to play that as a 6-3 also. Let's go to A minor 7. It's kind of low, but it doesn't matter what register you put it in. Keep the 1-5, put the 3-7 up here. And make sure you can play it as a 7-3 also. Then D7. Okay, pull that 3 and 7 out up here. And make sure you can play it as 7-3. G7. Pull the 3-7 out. Also 7-3. Okay, so that's what I recommend. It's a real simple step, but it programs your brain and your hands to what chord you're using. So when you start to work on a song, you've kind of got a head start. Okay, let's harmonize our first 4 bars of Danny Boy here. And everywhere we see a chord written above the melody, that's where we're going to find out which open voice chord we're going to use to support the melody. We have some pickup notes into our first spot. So we've got this E note here, and let me put this little marker right on that E note and see how we're going to harmonize that with a C major 7 chord. Here's C major 7. I'm going to pull the 3 and the 7 out and move it up here. Well, that's too high, isn't it? That's not going to work. So I'm going to have to invert it and go 7-3. And now it's perfect. 3 is the melody note. Okay, that's how we start. And then we got a little pickup note into our next spot. We come right back to an E again, and this time it's a C dominant chord. It's going to be the same thing. We keep the 1-5 and move the 3-7 up, but we're going to discover that it won't work like that, so we've got to invert it down to 7-3. And that's how we're going to do it. I wouldn't use these fingerings, but that's just how I have to make them so I can show you that melody note. Okay, and then we have some more pickup notes. So it's the D note, and we've got an F6 chord going on that D note. Let's make F6 here. Well, I can see that I've got a finger on the melody note. What I'm going to do is take the 1 and 5 and put it down here, hang on to the 3 and 6, and that works out pretty nicely for us. So we've got 3 and 6, and the melody note just happens to be the 6. Okay, we've got some melody notes to fill in before we get to our next chord spot. And it's here on bar 3, we've got a G note, and we've got to put a C major 7 onto that G. There's C major 7. I'm going to keep the 1 and 5, move the 3 and 7 up. Well, it doesn't work. I passed up the melody, so I'm going to invert it down to 7-3. So I've got 7-3 plus the melody note, a 3-note chord in my right hand. And then another note alone. So on this run here, I've got 2 chords to put in. The first one's on the G, and I've got an A minor 7 to put under that G. So I'm going to keep the 1 and 5, take the 3 and 7, and that fits perfectly. So I've got a 3 and a 7, which is the melody note. Then 1 note on my way to the next chord. Here I've got a C note that needs a D7 under it. Okay, I'm going to grab the D like that, and I see my little fingers on the melody note. So I'm just going to take the 1 and 5 down here, and I've got the 3 and 7 in my right hand, and the 7 is the melody. Now I've just got 1 more note before I get to the last chord, and that's a D note that has to be harmonized with a G7 chord. Okay, I'll play the G7 down here, hang on to the 1 and 5, bring the 3 and 7 up. Nope, passed up the melody, so I'll invert my right hand down to 7 and 3. So I'm going to have a 3-note chord, 7-3 plus the melody. Okay, so that's how we harmonize the first 4 bars, and we used our 3 most common chord types. I'll play it for you here. And there we are, nice and neatly arranged with open voice chords. For our next example, we're going to take a look at the first 8 bars of a great old standard called My Buddy. And here we get to use a diminished chord in 2 different spots. And that's a chord we run across regularly in our standards. So let's take a look at how we're going to open it up and use it with our melodies. As I mentioned before, I think it's a good idea to write down the names of the chords for anything you're going to work on, and make sure you can play the chords in root position. And also, since we're working in open voicings, you want to be able to play the 3 and 7 and 7 and 3 inversions in your right hand, because we never know which one we're going to need to support our melodies. And by the way, in case you don't know, the triangle up here, G triangle stands for major 7 these days. We see it in a lot of fake books. And the little circle, in case you don't know, is the shorthand for diminished. Now let's start out taking a look at the major 7. I'm going to take the 1 and 5, put it down here, leaving me with 3 and 7 in the right hand, and I want to make sure I can also play it in 7 and 3. Next chord, G sharp diminished. So I take the 1 and the flat 5, put it down here. That leaves me with 3 and 7 in my right hand, and I want to make sure I can invert it into 7 and 3. A minor 7. And the same thing, let's take the 1 and 5 down here. Leaves me with 3 and 7 in my right hand. I want to make sure I can invert that to 7 and 3. And now D7. Okay, I'm going to take the 1 and 5 and put it down here in my left hand, leaving me with 3 and 7 in the right, and make sure I can go 7-3. B flat. I'll take the 1 and the flat 5 down here, leaving me with 3 and 7. And if I wanted to go 7-3, there it would be. And then the G6. I'll take the 1 and 5 down here. I've got 3 and 6, and I might need to make it in 6 and 3 too, so I'd want to be able to do it over here. Okay, we're going to harmonize our song using open voicings. Wherever we see a chord written on the chart, we're going to use an open voicing to support our melody. We start with a D note, and it's a G major 7 chord. So let's take a G major 7 chord right here. I'm going to keep the 1 and 5 in my left hand and move the 3 and 7 up here. Well, I passed up the melody, so that doesn't work. I'm going to have to flip the 7 down here. And the melody's there. So I've got 7-3 melody. I wouldn't use this fingering. I'm just doing it this way to show you what notes I'm holding down. And then the next note, well, it stays on the D there. And this time it's a G sharp diminished. I'll keep the 1 and the flat 5 in my left hand and move the 3 and 7 up here. Once again, it won't work because I passed the melody, so I'll flip the 7 down here. And here's my 3-note chord in the right hand, 7-3 melody. Okay, the next note is exactly the same. That D again, and this time it's an A minor 7. Keep the 1 and 5, 3, 7. Same problem. We just passed up the melody, so I'll flip the G down here. So I've got 7-3 melody. Okay, I got a couple of melody notes before I get to the next chord. And that's a B natural with a D7 under. So I've got 1 and 5. Let's put a 3-7 up here. Nope, passed it up. Let's flip that 7 down again and support the B with that. So we've got 7-3 plus the melody note. And then it's a G melody note. This time it's a G6. I'm going to have to take the 1 and 5, put it down here, and hang on to the 3 and 6, and it's going to support our G note there. With 3, 6 plus melody. Okay, now our next spot is the B flat. We're back to the G note, and we've got a B flat diminished this time. I'll keep the 1 and the 5 in the left hand and bring the 3 and 7 up here. And that's all I need. 3 and 7, the melody notes on the 7. And then back to the G again for the A minor 7. A minor 7 here. I'll pull out the 3 and 7. And that's perfect. 1, 5, 3, 7. 7's the melody note. And then some melody notes on the way to our next chord. It's an E note. This time a D7 chord. Okay, I'm going to keep the 1 and 5 and put the 3 and 7 up here. Nope, that definitely won't work. Okay, so I'm going to have to put the 7 down. Well, that doesn't look like it's going to work either. So, okay, I've got to shift my camera over here so I can get way down here. I got out of camera range, so I've moved the 1, 5 down here, and I'm going to flip the 3 down one more time. So I've got 3, 7, and melody note here. And then on the way to the last chord, it's back to the E again, and this time it's a G6. So here's a G6 chord. I'm just going to take the 1 and 5 and move it down here. So I've got the 3 and the 6, and the melody note is the 6. Okay, we harmonized the first 8 bars of My Buddy. And we got to see how that diminished chord works in open voicings in 2 different places. Now let's learn a whole song, Irving Berlin's What'll I Do, classic standard. Now I've written the arrangement here so it features the D minor 7 flat 5 chord. So this way we've used all 5 chord types here in our first lesson. Let's see what chords this song is using before we start to take a close look at it and see how we're going to use our minor 7 flat 5 and play it as an open voiced chord. Now, as I always recommend when we work on any song, I suggest when you're just starting out that you make a list of the chords like I've done here. Nothing special, just write the chords down and what key the song's in. Maybe keep the list on your piano, just an idea, so you can have a growing list of chords that you use in various songs. And you'll start to see some of those chords are the same from song to song, so they become easier. I suggest it, we all go about learning in our own way, but it's a way to kind of keep organized. And play the chords before you start the song and make sure you know them. And if you don't know them, then spend a little time making sure you can do it. And then split them out into open voicings because that's what we're concentrating on here. So I'm going to take a brief walk through the chords that we use in What'll I Do. There's just 7 chords, and this is the process that I think you should do before you start working on the song, just to make sure you know how the chords work. Our first chord is a C major 7. We use it quite a bit in the song. We're going to keep the 1 and 5 and play the 7 and 3 in the right hand or the 3 and 7. And the next one is the chord that we feature in the tune that we're going to really be looking at a lot, and it's the D minor 7 flat 5. Now remember, it's just like a D minor 7, but the 5 is flatted. And so we're going to keep that 1 and flat 5 as we move our 3 and 7 into the right hand, or reverse the order of the right hand, so it's 7 and 3. Now the G7 I think we've seen in other songs, but here it is, G7. I'm going to keep the 1 and 5 and put the 3 and 7 up here and make sure I can play it in both ways in my right hand. F major 7 the same. I think we've seen this in other songs. Just keep the 1 and the 5, the 3, 7 up here, and the 7, 3. E minor 7, really low, but I'm down here just to get the 1 and the 5 out of it. Pull that 3 and 7 up here, and we've got a beautiful open voiced E minor 7 chord. Or turn it around, 7 and 3. A7, let's keep the 1 and the 5, put the 3 and the 7 up here, and the last one is the D minor 7. Ooh, that's pretty low, but we're just for the 1 and the 5, we're going to pull out of it, put the 3 and 7 here, or the 7, 3. So that's what I recommend you do before you start working on the tunes, just to make sure that you've got familiarity with them before you start trying to put the melody to them. Let's see how we're going to harmonize our melody. Well, let's start right out in bar 1 after the pickup notes. We've got this G note. Let's put a marker there on the G. C major 7 is going to go under it. Let's keep the 1 and the 5, break out the 3 and 7. Well, it's too high for the melody note, so let's invert it down to the 7, 3. Now it supports the melody. And then going on to our second bar, we've got the A flat note. Let's put our marker there, and we've got a D minor 7 flat 5. Let's hold on to the 1 and the flat 5, take the 3 and 7. Too high, so let's invert it down to 7, 3, supporting our melody note. And then to the third bar, well, I think this is where we just came from. So that's another C major 7, 1, 5, 7, 3, the 5 here, just what we started the first bar with. And then going on to bar 4, we've got an F note this time with a D minor 7 flat 5 again. Let's hold on to the 1 and flat 5, take the 3 and 7 up here. Well, that's not going to work, is it? We passed up the melody. Let's invert it down here, and it fits perfect. We've got a 7 and a 3. That's the melody note, the 3. And then it's an E note with a C major 7 under it. Let's keep the 1, 5, 3, 7. Nope, that's not going to work, so invert it down 7, 3. Okay, and then we go on to the G7, D note. We got a G7. Keep the 1 and the 5. Bring the 3 and 7. Nope. Invert it down to 7, 3. And then end the phrase with that C note and we have a C6 chord. So we're going to keep the 1 and 5, but we've got to move it down. It's just not going to work for us up this high, we'll discover. I'll hang on to the 3 and the 6 here and put the 1 and 5 down. And it's going to support this melody note. And that gets us through the first 8 bars. And that's the whole A section that gets repeated 3 times in this song. So let's go on and take a look at the bridge. It's an F major 7 under this C melody note here. So our F major 7 here, keep the 1 and 5, take the 3 and 7, too high. So we've got to invert down here. And there we have 7-3 melody note. And then go into this D note, and it's a D minor 7 chord under it. Let's keep the 1 and 5, bring the 3 and 7 up, and that works very good to support our melody. And then the third bar, go back to the F major 7, and it's just what we started the bridge with, 1, 5, 7, 3 melody. On to the fourth bar of the bridge, we go back to the D, but this time it's with a D minor 7 flat 5. Keep the 1 in the flat 5, move the 3 and 7 up. That'll support our melody nicely. 3-7 melody. Then on to the G note, which has a C major 7 under it. C major 7, keep the 1 and the 5, bring the 3 and 7. Nope, too high. Invert it down. And there we've got our 7-3 melody note. Then the A note, we've got an A7 chord under it. Let's keep the 1 and 5, bring the 3 and 7 up. Well, that works very nicely. I'm not going my fingers to get in the way here, but that's what it's going to be. 3-7 melody. And then let's go down to that D7. It's a D note, and let's put our marker there. Gonna have a D7 chord. Let's keep the 1 and 5, and I'm gonna put the 1 and 5 down here because you can't really quite see. I'm gonna hang on to the 3 and 7, put the 1 and 5 down here now, and that supports the melody perfectly. 3-7 melody note. And then it ends on a G7 chord. There's no melody to go with that. So we can take the melody away. It holds on, but we don't have to hold on to that note. We can just take it away and play a G7 chord, and here's a nice inversion to hit. That's perfect. We use 1, 5, 7, 3. The melody note could have hung on there. You could keep your little finger on there from the D7, and then that's how you can see that that's what you should go to. You don't want to jump up somewhere else. Okay, so that's the whole bridge section there. And the last A section is going to repeat exactly what we did in the first and second A sections. Okay, let me play it for you here. Let's see. So that gives us the whole song, just 2 sections. The A section gets repeated 3 times, and we've got the bridge in the middle. Now I want to suggest something different we can do the third time through to make this a little more interesting your last time through that section instead of just playing it exactly the same. I'm going to give you a left-hand idea here that we explore a lot in Lesson 2 and Lesson 3. But let me introduce it to you here in a simple way. We're playing our left hand all the time as 1 and 5. But we can roll the 1 and 5. We don't have to play them as a solid. So what I mean by that is if we take a major 7 chord, split it up 1, 5, 3, 7, in our left hand we can go hitting first the 1 and then the 5. And it's a real common technique. We explore this more in the next two lessons, but we start out in this place of 1 and 5. And we can use this through the entire A section, and it fills up the arrangement a little bit more, fills it out. So let me play it for you, and then I'll go back and explain more. And I'm using the pedal, and it just kind of fills up the bottom more. Let me play it in slow motion here and explain what I'm doing as we go. We play the exact same voicings. So we start out just like before. We have the 1, 5 on the left and the 7 and 3, the melody up top. But now we hit the 1 and then the 5. And then continue on to the next bar. The right hand's playing the exact same voicing, 7, 3 melody, but the left hand is playing the 1 and the 5, the flat 5. Then back where we came from, 1, then 5, then exact same voicing, 7 and 3, but this hand's broken up. And then left hand's broken up, but we're still playing 7, 3 in the right hand. We got 1 and 5 broken up. Same voicing in the right. Now if I rolled the 1, 5, 1 in my left hand here, I would come back to the final note to resolve it. So that's just something you can add to the arrangement as you're playing it down. And I suggested putting it in the last time through, but actually you could put it any time you wanted in the A sections. It just kind of do something different instead of doing the same thing every time. Okay, I want to talk about something else you might be able to put in here to kind of enhance the arrangement since you're learning this song. It's on the G7 that comes in the last part of the A section. Let me just play that last part. So this is the G7, and then the section ends. So when it gets to the G7, I'm going to give you a color tone here, a jazz color tone, the flat 9. And again, we talk about this a lot in lesson 2 and 3, but let me introduce it to you here without explaining it too much. I'm just going to show you what to do because it's a beautiful jazz color that we can add to our dominant 7 chords. What we're going to do is take this G7 chord, and the melody note is the D. And we're going to harmonize it out just like we did before. We're going to play the G7, hang on to the 1, 5, 3, 7 up here, but we flip it down to 7 and 3, melody notes here. Now the note that I'm going to add is the flat 9. It's a jazz color tone, and it's right here. Now we find the flat 9 by going a half step above the root. The root is G. We're on a G chord, go up a half step, and there we have a G7 flat 9. And flat 9 is the most often used altered jazz chord when we're playing standards. We talk more about that in the future lessons, but I just want to give it to you here because you might enjoy putting it into the song. At the end of the A section, and especially at the last A section as you're finishing the song, so that would sound coming from just a couple bars before it. That's the C. Just gives it a real sweet, romantic, kind of dramatic ending there. I'll play it down from the bridge here so you can hear how it all sounds in context. And in the A section after the bridge, I'll roll the left hand and finish it with the G7 flat 9 from the bridge.